Chances are you've had conversations about difficult things before, and you've had conversations that you might not even think of right now that have been hard to have, um, but that starting could be um, maybe focusing on something very simple, which is something that has been happening in the world, to ask maybe what a child may know or thinks that they know about it. I'm a huge fan of picture books for young children, and starting with engaging them around reading a story and asking questions about that story can start that conversation. Um, there are bits of media of watching television programming together that can start that conversation. Um, don't be afraid to push pause on whatever is happening to engage in that conversation, whether it's television programming or in family dinner, and there's a thread that you can talk about. Maybe not have a one solid place in the house where you have conversations like this, so that we don't think of just the kitchen table as the only place that we talk about this. But also remembering that it's not going to all happen in one conversation. So taking the pressure off of having the perfect starter and the perfect opening and the perfect first conversation could be really important here. That first conversation absolutely will not be perfect, and it will not be the last time you talk about this. But what's important is finding a way to connect and be open, and to give the opportunity and the door open for that conversation to continue.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is around with the younger children. It seems as if starting this discussion about race and racism uh, can be centered around issues of fairness. Because we know with kids, that's not fair. They understand what's fair. Sometimes they're saying it's not fair, but it is. But they do understand that as a concept. And to start to talk about, the fairness or the unfairness of the way some folks are treated, and why you think that's the case. And we never like to see things that are unfair. So, and have that as the beginning of a conversation. So the whole issue of fairness, I think, is a big one for young children, in a way to enter the conversation with them.
I think I also want to acknowledge that the privilege that's involved in even thinking about how to have this conversation, and that
Mm,
many families aren't
yeah,
afforded with the privilege of
yeah,
sitting back to think about what happens, that it has to happen.
yeah.
Um, and so while I think a lot of these answers of what language should I use and how do I do this, and I don't know if this is helpful or not, but it's it's uh, many people do not have the privilege of sitting down and planning when to talk about race. And so
Yeah.
from the perspective of um, a white person, then that I think we need to acknowledge that it's not everybody's experience, um, to be able to talk about the best conversation starters too.
So you are so right. So when we're talking about Black kids and Black families, it, the sooner the better. Exactly. So that's all the more reason to start as soon as possible, as early as possible, with the kinds of things I mentioned earlier, with the board books and story time, to begin that conversation and to build on it developmentally. You have to. You can't wait.